Pbkc is your entertainment destination for poker, table games, OTV, Paddock live events, and exceptional eats. The Paddock restaurant is perfect for meetings, corporate functions, parties, fundraising, and more. Call 561-683-2222 extension 199 and book your next event today.
It's May Payday in the Poker Room with new, bigger high hand promotions. High hands every 15 minutes, 9 a.m. to midnight with a $15,000 cash giveaway on May 31st. New this month are May Progressive High Hand Weekends with a $100,000 bonus giveaway. Win extra cash for qualifying hands. Miss it today, win more tomorrow. Visit the Poker Room for complete rules.
And we're live. Hey,
tell Pat we're live.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Pbkc Picks is live. It's a little bit later than we usually are, about an hour later, because we had some technical difficulties. But here we are. Myself, I'm Mike Jameson, longtime employee here at Pbkc, and I got Ernest Christian from the Earnestly Speaking podcast sitting next to me, a longtime poker dealer. How are we doing, Ernest?
I'm doing well. I mean, other than this morning and same things up here, it took a little while for us to get on here, but we're good. We're good.
Yeah, everything's great. Actually, checking in with us over the phone, we have the president of Pbkc, Mr. Pat Rooney. How you doing, Pat?
Hey, Mike, how are you? I was just calling to tell you guys I thought it was a great show today.
Yeah. Now, we're missing one of the parts of the show that when we're missing him, it makes it so much better. Noah's off somewhere. We don't even know.
He's on assignment.
He's on assignment right now, and that's where he is. But we got a lot of great topics to go, but we're going to start out by talking about those May high hands in the poker room. Those are crazy right now.
Great, man.
They are high hands every 15 minutes, $15,000 cash giveaway on the 31st, progressive high hand weekends with that $100,000 giveaway. You can't beat it. For more information, you can visit the poker room, or you can go to our website anytime at pbkennelclub.com. And now let's jump right into it. Let's talk about everything going on in the sports world, and we're going to start off with the NFL. The 2025 schedule is out right now. My question is, who do you think got the easiest schedule? Who do you think got the toughest schedule? What do you think, Pat?
Well, I think I saw some of the statistics. I think Buffalo, a lot of the AFC East teams, I think are the ones that got the quote-unquote easiest schedule, because I think they're playing the NFC South and somebody else from the AFC. So I think Buffalo statistically got the easiest schedule. But, you know as well as I do, Mike, that you think teams are going to be easy one year, and then they end up being harder games than you think, and vice versa because of injuries or whatever. So even though you might think you have the easiest schedule, that doesn't always equate to wins, and sometimes it means you actually lose more. I remember the Steelers had the toughest schedule in the NFL in 2005, and they ended up winning the Super Bowl that year. So while you can look at some things and say, okay, we got to play San Francisco, or we got to play New England, or we got to play whoever, and they're really good that year, that might be a loss, and that probably still is true. But a lot of these teams that you think are going to be good because they were good last year doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be good this year. And I would just caution everybody out there that thinks they have an easy schedule this year. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get more wins than you think.
Yeah, Pat is right on that one. It is one of the most overrated storylines in the offseason. Hardest schedule. It's all based on last year's teams. And don't forget, these teams also, who were probably good last year, lost players too as well. So you have that. And then you also have to bake in injuries as well too. For example, the New York Giants, they have from what the percentages say, have the second hardest schedule in the league right now. But a lot of those teams who were, for example, the Vikings on the schedule, they were 14-3. Knowing hell they're going to be 14-3 next year. Okay, they're going to be a little bit worse than they were last year. Yeah. And there were teams also in there who were a little bit worse than they should have been, but maybe a little better. So I think that's one of the most overrated things we look at when it comes to the offseason. It's really more about content. At the end of the day, schedule's a schedule. You know who you're playing every so often, because we know a couple years out that the rotation goes. You play the AFC East one year, and then the South and whatnot. It is what it is. I think it's one of the most overrated things, honestly. I don't buy into that, and I think teams that you think, like I said, the Vikings won, Chargers could be decent this year, but a lot of teams are going to fall off the beaten path this year too. Also, so that's overrated.
Yeah, statistically, they're saying that the Giants face the most challenging schedule with opponents combined 2024 win percentage at 574. And then they're saying that some of the easiest schedules include San Francisco 49ers, who obviously, like we're talking about, everybody would have seen the 49ers on the schedule last year and be like, oh, wow, this is going to be a tough game, when we realized the 49ers weren't the same 49ers from the year before, like Pat was saying, too.
And a lot of it, too, also, in the division, too, also, the team's going to be a little bit worse than they were last year. Like, maybe not the Rams necessarily, but the Cardinals, so.
Exactly. Here's one of the questions that came up within the last couple of weeks after the Dallas Mavericks got the first pick in the NBA draft because of the draft lottery. Would it be interesting, would it be right for the NFL to have a draft lottery? What do you think, Pat?
I really don't like that. I think you're putting a lot of stuff to chance there, and I don't believe that NFL teams consciously tank, and that's the whole reason why you're going to have a lottery, because you're worried about teams tanking, and you don't want to incentivize tanking. Now, listen, do NFL teams, when they're 3-12, are they going to put forth the effort, to win the last 2 or 3 games of that year? Probably not. But I do believe NFL players, and I'm not saying they're better than any other league or anything like that, but I do think they take more pride, because there's so few games in the NFL, that they do try to win. And we see this every year. You see it at the end of every year. A team that stinks and has no incentive to win, in fact, disincentive, because they're costing themselves a draft position, win games. Mm-hmm. So I don't think there's evidence in the NFL yet of teams deliberately tanking to get better draft picks. I think the Giants last year won a couple games at the end of the year that prevented them from having the number 1 pick. So I would not be in favor of a draft lottery absent evidence that NFL teams are clearly tanking at the end of seasons, and I just don't think that's happened yet. So I think the way it works out now, whoever the worst team is ends up being the worst team, and they should get the first pick.
Now with them too, also it creates a perception issue. Especially, you look at the NBA. No matter how much they changed the way they present the draft lottery in the last 40 years. First was the ping pong balls, then it's the whole, they do the little numeric thing where they do to figure out the odds, all that. There's still the perception that it's rigged. I mean, look at the Mavericks this year, for example. Well, they trade Luka to the Lakers, so now they're going to award him with the number 1 pick for flag. It creates an issue overall. It sounds good in theory, but the NFL way is probably the way you do it in the NFL is fine, because I think the NFL culture and the culture within the teams. Look at the Giants. They cost themselves the 1 pick in the draft because they beat the Colts in week 16, I think it was. So I think the culture itself is good enough to where teams are not going to be wanting to tank anyway. Even if the executives and coaches may want to go that route, players are too prideful anyway to do that. So I think it is good the way it is right now, honestly, and just keep it as is.
Okay, a vote is expected today, unless something's already come out earlier right now, that is expected today on the Green Bay Packers' proposal to ban the tush push. And if they want to enact that ban, a minimum of 24 out of the 32 NFL teams must approve. Pat, do you think we're going to have the tush push next year?
I got a feeling that they're going to ban it. I didn't initially, but I think as time's gone on, I think the sentiment, and I could be wrong, is that they're going to end up banning this. I think it's generally stupid, because it's specifically one team, the Eagles, that can do this. Other teams have tried it. Buffalo's tried it to some degree of success, and other teams have tried it with no success at all. And I'm always wary of trying to prevent somebody from doing something just because your team can't stop them from doing it.
Right.
So the reasons to do it I think are just visual, and that people don't want it. Just like they did, they moved the point after a touchdown, 15 yards or whatever it is, because it was becoming so automatic. And the NFL's always against things that are automatic, and the Eagles are well over, I think, 90% when they try to convert this tush push. So the NFL doesn't want that. They want to see some competitive element to it, and I think they're going to ban it. But from like we talked about on it, a few shows ago, So from a man standpoint, I'm against this completely. If you can't line up as a man and stop me from doing this, then you're not as good as me. So I'd rather see them. I'd rather see some other team try to come up with something creative to stop it, rather than the NFL just saying, all right, well, they can't stop it, so now we're going to make you stop it and make it be a penalty if you do it. So, but I think the NFL is going to ban it.
As a Giants fan who detests the Philadelphia Eagles, I obviously wouldn't mind it being gone. As a football fan and a man, as Pat just said, I think I'm with Pat here. I think you can't stop it. That's too bad. And again, it goes back to what I've been saying all year long. I don't see the football reason as to why you would do this. They keep saying, because of injuries. Well, I haven't seen any injuries that's in the last 2-3 years they've done doing this now. That makes you think they should do this. Like, come on, it's stupid. I do think it won't pass. He thinks it will. I don't think it will pass necessarily. I think there's enough teams will resist it. But would it surprise you that it does get banned? No, because some of these teams are soft.
Yeah, I
the
feel
Packers, for example.
Yeah, I feel like the injuries, like obviously we saw in the Super Bowl this year. Who was it? Jones, I believe it was of Kansas City. Somebody on not on Kansas City. Yeah, no, it was somebody went in and they went in sideways trying to stop this tush push at the goal line, and ended up like hurting his neck. And I'm thinking to myself, like, it's because he's trying new methods of trying to stop this. But like Pat said, just find a way to stop it. I personally don't think they're going to get 24 out of the 32 teams to vote to ban it. But nothing would surprise me anymore. And we should probably know in the next couple of days if the Eagles are going to be able to use the tush push or not next year. Also, one of the things that came out of this owners meeting approved yesterday is a proposal for players to participate in flag football at the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics, and I believe it's one player from each team is allowed to play in the Olympics. There's going to be tryouts and everything. So it's a pretty cool thing, and I've already heard people like Justin Jefferson are out there saying, great things like, oh my God, win a gold medal, like people that that play football never thought they would be able to do. What are we thinking about this flag football in the Olympics, Pat?
I mean, I'm not as enthusiastic, I don't think, as you are, Mike. I'm not against it. I'm not against them trying to find quote-unquote new sports or new variations of sports for public interest. But, I go back to kind of being a traditionalist with things like this. In the Olympics, I sort of view like there should be like 20 sports, and they should be the same 20 sports all the time until, we as a society say, all right, we don't want to see curling anymore in the Winter Olympics or whatever it is. But like track and field and volleyball and certain sports, this is like the only time they get a spotlight. And you actually get to know like some of the people who have been doing these sports their whole lives get some notoriety just strictly because of the Olympics. These football players, these professional guys, we know who they are, and we sort of get to watch them, at least in America, every week. And I'm not against it. I don't have a strong opinion for it, but my interest level in just seeing Russell Wilson throw to DK Metcalf or something, I don't have a ton of interest in it. Now, maybe when they play it and I see it and it's like, hey, this is more exciting than I thought it was going to be, maybe I'll get into it a little bit more. But my initial reaction is, okay, they can throw that in there. They've done this with other, sports like baseball and golf and things like that we see on a, weekly basis. And I'm not saying it's, not as interesting, but I don't get the same excitement watching Coco Gauff try to get a gold medal in tennis versus her trying to win a U.S. Open. So, maybe it'll change if they keep doing it long enough. But, right now I'll probably watch it, but I have very low expectations for the excitement level that I'm going to have for it.
Same here. I'll watch it if it's there because it's the first time, it's fresh and new. But I'm not excited about it. But having said that, like if anything to grow the game, because if you forget that football is really a national sport outside of America, no one really. I mean, it's only starting to trickle down certain countries now because we highlight those games in London and in Germany and whatnot in Brazil. So if anything that grows the sport is going to help it. I'm all for. But am I interested in overall big picture? I can see myself watching the first day or two in the Olympics and this out of intrigue, and if there are names there like Justin Jefferson, for example, that for receiver they're playing, maybe I'll jump in and check it out. But outside of that, to me the Olympics is all about what we traditionally have seen for years, track and field and curling and basketball and all that nature. So
Yeah, no, I think the Olympics. I mean, we had the break dancing, and we had all these other things.
You
in the
didn't enjoy
last
that?
Olympics. Oh, I mean,
That's awesome.
I enjoyed the memes that came after it, but I didn't enjoy the actual sport. I mean, no, it's all great, and like we always talk about. I know SNL did a skit on this probably 30 years ago. The people coming back from the Winter Olympics, and you had the Nancy Kerrigans and all these people that were household names making millions of dollars, and the curling people are going back to their 9-to-5s, even though they're gold medal winners, just because that's what they do. That's what got them to the Olympics and the best at that particular sport. So I think it'll be interesting. I'm not super excited about it, but I just want to see what other countries can put up the competition against our guys playing flag
if anything,
football.
Curiosity. That's it. This is curiosity for me, more than else.
Exactly. Let's move on now to another topic. Let's go to the NBA now. Let's talk about everything going on in the playoffs. The playoffs are hot right now. You got the Pacers and the Knicks. That's game 1 tonight. That's going to be an awesome series. The New York Knicks reached the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time since 2000. The Pacers have actually never won an NBA championship, so that should be a great series. Of course, we're looking forward to that. And last night we had Game 1 of the Timberwolves versus the Thunder, where the Thunder dominated with a 114-88 win at home. How are we feeling about that NBA playoffs, Pat?
Well, I was disappointed with Minnesota last night. I thought Anthony Edwards. I know he got tweaked his ankle or whatever happened, and they did stay relatively close for a good part of the game. But man, I just really wanted to see a super competitive game. That first game with the same thing with the Knicks and Indiana, which I think you will see a good game tonight. But man, I really wanted to see Minnesota come out and try and match up. I know it's tough. Oklahoma City's very good, but I really wanted to see a good game that first game, because that kind of sets, in my opinion, that sets the tone for the rest of that series. And now I'm just sort of expecting Minnesota to get blown out in game 2 and then take it back to Minnesota and see if they can, regroup at that point. Maybe they will. But I was hoping for a much more competitive series opener than what that game ended up being, especially towards the end of the game there. But, if Edwards is okay, I expect them to bounce back, but I just don't like seeing teams lose by 20-plus points in sort of game ones are statement games to me, Mike. They're statement games, especially for the road team. It's like, we're showing up. We're going to be here. This series is not, going to be, we're just happy to be here and that kind of stuff. And I don't know, Minnesota kind of let me down last night.
It was a competitive game till middle third quarter, and then OKC pulled away in the fourth. You should expect a blowout in the game, too, because what you saw in the last series against Denver, I said it on the podcast last week, that was your NBA Finals. OKC grew up before our very eyes. This is a very young team that won 68 games this year. We forget that. And still have to prove something in the playoffs. And they're doing it now little by little. And I think OKC is a matchup problem for Minnesota, and I think if you have guys like Naz Reid not putting in points, like Julius Randle had a great game. That's the guy who I think is the big wildcard for this series for the Wolves, is that he has to play consistent all the way through, and he played great last night. Everybody else didn't show up. Edwards obviously tweaked his lower extremity, but where was Naz Reid last night? Where was McDaniels? No one else showed up last night. So OKC's that good, man. I had them in 5 win the series anyway. So what we saw last night is a sign of things to come. I think OKC honestly is leaps and bounds the best of the 4 teams left in the Final Four here.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't really honestly see this being much of a competitive series. Honestly,
I don't either.
think, like you said, the last round against the Nuggets was the toughest competition they're going to face. And one of the next questions I have is: did SGA, with the performance in Game 7 against the Nuggets, scoring 35 points and then 31 last night, did he cement himself and prove himself as the MVP of the NBA, Pat?
Yeah, I think people are finally, because again, I don't think the NBA did as great a job as they normally do showcasing guys, and they didn't really showcase him a ton this year. And I think now people, because they have to see him, are seeing what kind of a player he is. Yeah, I think he's the MVP. I think he could be the MVP of the finals if they win everything, which, as you guys said, they should be the favorites at this point. It's the NBA, like any other sport. They need stars. They need guys. They need young guys, and that's why I sort of like Anthony Edwards, and I wanted to see him kind of elevate himself. But just like you're saying, Ernest, maybe Oklahoma City's just that much better of a team. And SGA certainly making his point to be, considered one of the best players in the NBA and really maybe one of the future, greats in the NBA. So absolutely, I think he's the MVP, and he might be the MVP of the playoffs when this is said and done.
Well, you already know how I feel about this. We had this conversation with Noah the last couple months on the show. You already know how I feel about this. And I hate this conversation because, I feel like if I say SGA's MVP, I'm knocking Jokic. No, Jokic is still the best player in basketball. Mm-hmm. Both things can be right here. And Pat's right. There's an issue with showcasing guys because the NBA is so obsessed with the Lakers, the Warriors, against Jokic because the Nuggets now, the Celtics, and I get that. But there are a lot of really good stars in this league, and SGA has been coming for a while. I mean, I'm an NBA diehard, so I probably don't count in this conversation, but I've been watching this kid since the beginning, and he was the runner-up MVP last year. Mm-hmm. Behind Jokic, and they won 60 games last year as well, too. Also, so this is a long time coming, and I mean. Last night didn't prove anything. It's only cemented what I've been saying for the last 2-3 months. And to me, I came back to team success. It's not that Jokic does not deserve the MVP, because there's a conversation for that. Absolutely, Noah's not wrong about that. But when you win just a tick south of 70 games in a year, which very few teams in this league has done in the history of this league. You talk about the 86 Celtics. You're talking about, obviously there's only been 2 teams that won 70 games. The Warriors, of course, in 16 and 16, 17, and of course, and then the Bulls in 96. You're messing with immortality there now. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So when you add that to the equation on top of that, you can't look away from that as well too. I mean, this team won the Western Conference by 16 games this year. Mm-hmm. So. To me, it's pretty obvious at this point when you take all the things around him, not just the fact he's leading scorer and all this stuff, but the team success. He has to get MVP at this point.
Yeah, this is a crazy playoffs because this is the first time in NBA history with 7 different championships in a 7-year span.
I love it.
And what I heard, the talk was, we're doing away with the super teams. We're done with that. It's not happening anymore. This is the first time in NBA history. Obviously, in the 80s, you had the 80s were dominated by the Lakers and by the Celtics. You got the Bulls in the 90s, and in this last 7 years with 7 different champions, I don't think I'd ever thought I was going to see this with the Golden State super teams and all these other teams that were put together and all of LeBron's different teams, to have 7 different champions in 7-year span. What does that mean to you, Pat?
Yeah, I think it's good for the game at this point. I'm not against super teams because obviously I love the Bulls and I love Michael Jordan and I wanted to see them win more than they did, but that's because I like Michael Jordan. If it was somebody like Larry Bird or Magic Johnson, because I was a Sixers fan, I didn't want them to see multiple times. But I think for the NBA, this is something different. It's kind of like the NFL. The NFL, once we got kind of away from the Patriots' dominance, it's now more of a, and I know Kansas City's real good, but they're beatable. They've lost 2 Super Bowls now. So I think it's good for leagues in general to have different teams have chances to win. Those fan bases in Oklahoma City have been long suffering, and that's a relatively small market team. I think that would do unbelievable wonders for the state of Oklahoma if a team from there won a major sporting championship. So I'm okay with super teams. Maybe you don't want to have them every decade, which we're not having them this decade, but I think it's good for those other teams to have a chance to win in any sport, just like in hockey or baseball or whoever. So I'm okay with it.
What are we learning in sports now in the last couple of years with the NFL success, NHL gaining ground again? Last 10 years, is that parity is a thing. Parity is good. Competition is good. I remember we complained with the NBA about some of the things about the 3-point shooting and those legitimate conversations to have. I remember 10 years ago, people complaining about, oh my God, the Heat and the Spurs again. Oh, it's the Warriors and the Cavs again. And it sucked to think that we knew the NBA Finals back in October. Going to June, okay, we know 8 months out that who's going to be the 2 teams that face for the championship, and now it's great. Now we have a mixed bag of teams here. Look at the 4 teams right now in the Final Four right now.
Yeah,
we're going to have a team that either a team that's never won a championship ever, or a team that's won since Richard Nixon was president.
Yeah,
I mean that's great for the NBA. I got a discussion with my friend of mine this morning about this. The fact that the NBA doesn't want an OKC Indiana finals and all that stuff. And I go, I hope we get that. You know why? Because I think marketing other markets is good for the league overall. I think if you are a league that relies on the Lakers and the Celtics and to a lesser degree the Warriors, on all these other big market teams to hold you over, then are you really a stronger league in the first place? What's the point of competing if all you care about is having the big markets? No, I want everyone to eat here, and I want competition at the end of the day. So yeah, I love this. I love the fact you have seven new champions now. This is great.
No, I think it's awesome. I think it's spreading the wealth. I'd love to see another dominant New York Knicks team come back. I think them against Oklahoma City in the finals would be,
that'd be a phenomenal series. As a basketball fan, that's a phenomenal series.
I think that would have good ratings too.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm hoping for. But you can't knock the Pacers. They've had a great season too. Yeah. Now we're going to touch on another basketball league. Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese on Saturday went head to head. That game was absolutely dominated by the Fever. They got what looks like a playoff team. They did lose last night, a really close game. But during that game on Saturday, Clark was called for a flagrant foul on Reese last week on the show. That's what all of us agreed with. We need that competition. We need that head-to-head to really put this league out there even more than they are now. Did this pique your interest at all in WNBA, Pat?
Well, I think it's good. There's an old saying, any publicity is good publicity. So I think even though this particular publicity is not like two great players battling each other, scoring 50 points each, and somebody hitting a buzzer beater at the end, this is dealing with a foul. But if you look at that specific play, Angel Reese pushed somebody before that, and that's why Caitlin Clark was mad that it wasn't called, and then she sort of grabbed, I don't even think it was flagrant, she just kind of grabbed Angel Reese. There was no, I think, chance of being severely injured on that, and then everything, of course, blew up because it's those two. So the WNBA has to be careful here in a way. You want, if you're going to highlight, confrontations and stuff, they better be legitimate confrontations.
Right.
That thing was not that big of a deal. You watch the NBA; those fouls happen all the time, much worse than that. And we're blowing this thing up like she elbowed her to the face or something. I just think they got to be careful. Yeah, a lot of people watched it, and it did drive some notoriety. But the real crux of the play was Angel Reese shoving somebody before that, and then Caitlin Clark getting mad because it wasn't called, and then her just kind of grabbing Angel Reese. I just didn't think it was that big of a foul, to tell you the truth. Mm-hmm. If you want to call it flagrant, okay, but let the players play. Let the true drama come out. If you're playing up something that, like I said, in my opinion, really wasn't that big of a deal foul-wise, then you risk the thing of, we want to show everything now because we want this to be super successful and super intense and have these people have great rivalries and stuff like that. If you try to manufacture something, the public generally will catch on to that after a while and be like, all right, well, now we're going to flop and everything else to make everything look like it's super dramatic. And they have to be careful. Let the talents of these players come out, and people will watch that. You don't need to pump up something that, in reality, in my opinion, really wasn't that big of a foul, but that's my opinion.
Right. Amongst all the talking points, all the narratives on this situation, you know what my biggest takeaway from this whole thing is?
What?
Caitlin Clark is a great teammate.
Yeah.
You know what? She defended her teammate. Mm-hmm. And that's what it took away from the whole thing. All the conversation around that outside this is disingenuous as hell. Okay? She's a great teammate. Now, having said that, this stuff is good for a league that needs the attention. It's good for it. It's a good rivalry. Obviously, the other controversy about, whether or not Angel Reese should be as mad as she was, which she probably should have been mad as she was. But, this is great for the WNBA. Anything that gives attention to these ladies is good for the sport, and they need to embrace this. So I love this. But, again, my biggest takeaway from this whole thing, honestly, is that Caitlin Clark was a fantastic teammate, in addition to being a great player.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be an exciting season. Caitlin Clark's sophomore season, she's already setting more records in the league. It's something I'm a fan of her. I'm a fan of the Fever. I didn't have a WNBA team before that, so it's like.
And guess what? I'm a fan of Angel Reese also too.
Yeah,
because
I think
there's a place for her to eat as well too. Also, so I love all of this. This is great.
Yeah, no, I'd love to build up more women's sports too. Mm-hmm. Shout out to Josh and Schmergs, who's
What's up, Schmerg?
in. Also, now we're going to move on to another subject, and it's a subject that Pat's going to know a lot about, and that is the NHL. The Panthers won Game 7 versus the Maple Leafs, and that was such an awesome signing. Brad Marchand, I know we talked about this for weeks before the playoffs. He became the first player in NHL history to defeat the same opponent, which was the Maple Leafs, in at least 5 winner-take-all games. Those Maple Leaf fans absolutely hate Brad Marchand. Now he's with the Panthers, and the Panthers came out in the first round of the conference finals last night and beat the Hurricanes 5-2. How are we feeling about our Panthers, Pat?
Well, I think those, and we talked a little bit about this a few weeks ago, those people that were worried would Brad Marchand mesh with his team. He got off to kind of a slow start with him. Not much was happening the first, several weeks that he was with the team in the regular season. Well, now you're getting to Brad Marchand in playoff mode, and this dude, 37 years old, and he's going to cost him a first-round pick in 2027. But I can tell you right now, it's already worth it. This guy is a definite difference maker. He gets under the skin of a lot of other players, and that's fine. But he's not just a goon out there. He actually creates plays. He creates scoring opportunities. He scores himself, but he's great off the puck. He's great distributing the puck. And it's just a shame we couldn't get him like 3 or 4 years ago, because I don't know how much more he's got in the tank after this year. But for this playoff series, he's absolutely been the difference maker. I mean, Toronto, I give them a lot of credit after getting beat 6-1 in Game 5. And Marchand played great in that game. But to come back and actually shut out the Panthers in Game 6 in Florida, I did not expect that. And so I was a little worried going into Game 7 that something switched with the Toronto, and maybe they were actually going to win a Game 7, which they haven't done in a long time. But Marchand and the rest of those Panthers stepped up and won, again, very big in 6-1 in Game 7, and then came out last night, on fumes because they were just played on Sunday and beat a very, very good Carolina team that had not lost at home and beat them pretty soundly. So I think the expectations now are very high for Florida. This is going to be a tough series, I still believe. And then if they get Edmonton, especially in the finals, if I jump ahead, that's going to be very tough. But Florida looks like one of those champion teams that can turn it on when they need to. And it looks like that's what they're doing. And that's going to be tough for the rest of the NHL to deal with. I hope I'm right, because I'm a Panther fan. They have looked sort of disinterested at other points of the playoffs and in the regular season. But if we get this version of the Panthers the rest of the way, it's going to be bad news for the rest of the NHL.
Yeah, and you see the whole through playoffs long. First round, I know went 2-0 against Tampa, but lose Game 3, you get a little worried, and then they come back and win the next 2 games. And then this series against Toronto, down 0-2, games, finding ways to win games. This is what championship teams does. I think the series is over. I know Panther fans want me to say this because I'm a jinx. All my friends who are Panther fans don't say that. Don't say that. No. This is over. No, I am. That's fine. But it's a series over. Like Pat alluded to a little earlier. Game 1s are statement games.
Yeah.
That's a statement. In Carolina, 5-2. That's a statement. This series is already over.
Yeah. A very wise person said this probably on the show at one point. Winners win.
Was that the genius himself?
I forget who it was.
The other guy, the Knick fan?
The name we're not going to to speak of.
He's not here, so you can't say it.
But it's, that's exactly what I'm foreseeing. I thought the same thing after a hard-fought series with the Maple Leafs and just playing 2 days later in the start of the conference finals. But coming out last night, scoring 5 goals, beating them 5-2. Go Panthers. We're all Cats fans here. So we're really rooting them on. And now we're going to move on to another sport. Now we're going to talk about some baseball. The Yankees won an exciting Subway Series over the Mets, 2-1. The Yankees, that was an exciting series. We always talk about the Subway Series from way back in the day in the World Series. How do we feel about that Subway Series, Pat?
Well, I was a big Juan Soto guy. Huge when the Mets signed him. And I'm like, this guy, we talked, again, a couple of weeks ago about who would you start a team with, and we kind of all agreed on Aaron Judge. But for me, right behind that would have been Soto. But then he hits a ball off the green monster and doesn't run it out. Mm-hmm. And I know these are minor things, and I'm old school and all that kind of stuff, but I'm like, dude, you're making $1 zillion, literally $1 zillion. And that ball wasn't close. Like, it was mid-wall. And I'm like, you're getting a single out of that? what a lot of these guys don't understand, Mike, is that they set the tone for the rest of this team. They're the as Reggie Jackson was, the stir that straws a drink. He's the guy. Everybody on that team looks up to him, whether he wants them to or not, because he's making the money. And if you don't run it out, that just sends a signal like, I thought it was way out, and it wasn't. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm worried about the Mets because they have a lot of talent and stuff like that, but when your lead guy is not busting his hump every play because he got paid, I worry a little bit about the signal that's sending. On the other hand, the Yankees, I got to give them a lot of credit. I thought, like the Phillies, who I've been wrong on so far, would after losing that World Series the way they did last year, would have a quote-unquote downer type year. But again, I think a guy like Aaron Judge, just because he's so good in so many facets, is lifting that team on his shoulders himself, and they're going to be a force, I think, the rest of the year, despite a lot of injuries and things that they got going on internally. I think that was a microcosm of both of these teams are very good. They can improve even more. But one team has a guy that does bust his butt and does the little things that you need to do to win games. And the other guy just showed me something that I'm like, uh-oh. Now we got another guy that's, looking at what he thinks is a home run, and it's not even close. Again, not a major thing, but something that if I'm a Mets fan, I'm not going to be happy about.
Well, I'm a Mets fan. Speak for yourself, Pat, because I'm worried.
Yeah,
because
you should be.
I got Sully back here looking at me, I'm sure, because since that series, they now lost 2 in a row because the Red Sox on top of that now, too. So I'm very worried now. All of a sudden, look at the division now. They're not in first place anymore. The Phillies now caught ground again. The Braves are, remember the Braves, what, 2-9, 2-10?
Yeah.
They're now, 4 back of first place now. So we said this, it was a cool story early on. Get excited, yes. Met fans, yes. I'm a Met fan as well, too.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's a long season. A lot of swings, ebb and flows, all this. And you're seeing now a bad swing now. And, something like that with Soto is worrying because it's a bigger picture thing. You know what I mean? So, and again, this is the highest paid player in the history of the sport, okay?
Yeah.
I told you guys, was I happy he was here? Yeah. It's not my money. I'm not paying him. But at the same time, it's like, is he worth that kind of money? I always said he was not worth that kind of money. I'd rather use that money towards pitching and getting other value players here and there. Having said that, he's on the team now. I get that, but I'm worried now because the last 5 games now, and it's a long season ahead of us, man. But if you're a Met fan, you have to be worried because we've seen these things happen. 7-game lead with 17 games to go, and they blow a lead and miss the playoffs. So. We're jinxed. We're a jinxed team. So until we get back to winning a World Series, first time since '86, I'm always being worried.
Yeah, that was my next question, but you already answered that.
What was that?
Are you regretting signing Soto?
I'm not regretting signing Soto at all. It is what it is. I would have done that kind of money when I've done that. I would have rather done the St. Louis Cardinals route and use that money elsewhere to other pieces. But I get it. You play in New York. You're fighting against the bad pages, against the Yankees. You want to be relevant. I get all that. But at the end of the day, it's about winning ball games. And if he can't. He's not even playing all that great. He's playing okay, but again, we're measuring his play versus the actual contract. It's not matched up right now, and that's the problem right now. I already said, and I have Aaron Judge right now than Soto under discussion.
Well, you knew what you were getting. It was the funniest thing to me was yesterday on all the headlines and all the tickers. I'm in the poker room and I'm looking up at the TV and it's like, the Mets are upset with Soto and it says they're going to talk to him. And I'm like, what is it like when you're somebody like that goes on TV and sees the ticker below that says, "Hey, the team's going to call you in for a meeting that day." You knew what he were.
You should be engaged anyway.
Exactly.
You're getting paid as such. You should be engaged. It's a team sport. Be engaged. I know I sound old school like Pat does, but I'm with him on this one.
Yeah.
You should be engaged. There's no excuses here. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we knew he was bad in the field. That's always been a hindrance of Soto.
Right.
And now he's pulling some more shenanigans.
He's not even the best player on the team right now. It's Pete Alonso's the best player on the team right now.
Yeah. I can say he's not even the top 2 best players on the team.
Yeah, Lindor's having a great year too. Also,
exactly. Here's another interesting one I wanted to bring up. The Mariners actually have a switch pitching prospect. This is the only time I've heard about this.
Never heard this before.
Gerangelo Clinch carried a no-hit bid into his final frame while twirling a career-high 6 innings on Sunday, and I looked it up. He is actually allowed to pitch from both sides in a game. Have you ever heard about this, Pat? Is this some kind of cheat code for the future of the Seattle Mariners?
Mike, I think, and I can't think of the guy's name. I'm struggling, but I think there was a guy in the National League or in baseball that did this too, that could throw from both sides and was good at it. The name escapes me. It's not that long ago. And I think what they were worried about or trying to figure out was, can he pitch left and right to the same batter? Like when a switch hitter goes up, I think he has to kind of declare, quote unquote, if he's going to play bat left or right, and he has to stay that way. And in this case, the guy was pitching, and I think he wanted to pitch left-handed one pitch and right-handed the other to the same batter, and that was an argument. So, listen, people are evolving, things are changing in our world, and you knew at some point somebody was going to be able to. I'm surprised that hasn't happened. Throw pretty good left and right, and I don't know. I'm cool with any kind of person that has God-given ability to do something to showcase that. But if he truly can throw, well both sides, and more power to him, I'd want to see it. So I'm okay with it.
Yeah, me too. I mean, again, it goes back to what I said earlier. The more eyeballs, the more things that bring eyeballs to the sport is going to be good for the game of baseball. So this is really cool. I didn't know this was a thing, to be honest with you, but
yeah,
this is really cool.
Yeah, no, that was one of the top headlines the other day. I think a lot of people are. I think he's in the lower A right now, but he's moving up the ranks in the Mariners organization, and it'll be interesting. I do kind of remember somebody like Pat said. That did that. Okay.
Breaking news.
We just got breaking news. We like to talk about that on here. The tush-push play will remain alive.
I win!
They didn't get the votes. The tush-push is back for next year. How we feeling, Pat?
Push.
I'd love to know what that vote was, by the way, though.
I'll try now.
I bet you it was probably closer than we think, but I'm glad they didn't ban it because, again, this isn't like Mel Blount in 1974 when he would get up being 6'5", jamming guys, and receivers couldn't get off the line. That was actually, something detrimental to the game because he was so good, and other corners were going to start doing that it was impacting the offense in the NFL as a whole. This is just a play, and you got to figure out how to stop it. And I'm okay with going man to man and having these coaches with their brilliant execution and creativity and everything else try to figure out a better way to stop the Eagles from doing it. So I'm cool with them keeping it.
22 votes. 22.
Yeah,
they need 24. So it was close. It was close.
Yeah,
so 22.
No,
I thought they were going to do it. I thought you'd get the 24 on this one.
You might do it again, but if they vote for it again next year, I'm sure there's two teams.
Ernest, I wouldn't be surprised at all if they have, again, 90% plus success rate doing this, and other teams try it and they really can't do it. I think it gets banned next year. But they just didn't want to do it like right now, I think. But if they get another year of this and no one can stop it, I think they will ban it next year.
Somewhere out there in the ether, Noah's happy.
Yeah,
so,
Noah's happy wherever in the world, or maybe he's in another universe.
He always is, but it's okay. We love you, Noah.
Noah's very happy right now. He's smiling right now, wishing he could call into the show also. But again, if you're just tuning in, we have the president of Pbkc, Pat Rooney, on the phone. The tush
sounds
push
great too, by the way.
Yeah, it really does. The tush push is actually back for next year. Shout out to Jake and Josh who helped produce in the show today. Also, shout out to people checking in. We actually have the former super fan, a.k.a. the Super Poker
What's up, Matt?
Matt Fagan, one of our biggest Panthers fans, was checking in.
You could be worse. You could be a Marlin fan.
Yeah, everybody checking in is taking shots at Ernest today. But
I don't get it. Oh, because Noah's not here. That's right. Never mind. Go. We're good.
Well, I mean, you're lovable. That's why. Yeah. Now we're going to talk about something that we're glad Pat's on the show for. Scottie Scheffler wins the PGA Championship by 5 strokes, finished 11 under par, 5 strokes ahead of a group tied for second, which included DeChambeau, Riley, and Harris English. And this victory marks his 3rd major championship win. How did we feel about one of your favorite tournaments, the PGA Championship, Pat?
Yeah, I know. Last week we were talking like it was the U.S. Open, but I kept wanting to try to interject like, oh, it's the PGA. But I think it's great for golf. I know we talk about parity and stuff like that in other sports, but in this particular sport, golf, I think it's really crystallizes and focus things when you have one guy that's sort of dominating, much like when Tiger was. I'm not going to put Scheffler at that level anywhere close to it yet because he's only done this for a couple of years. But if you look, I saw a statistic for the first 22 majors that guys have played. The only guy that has more majors, Scheffler, this was his third, was Tiger. So Tiger had 5 in his first 22 starts, and Scheffler has 3. So you're getting into conversations about things that Tiger did that now Scheffler is starting to creep up on. I don't know how he does it. His swing is very loose. He moves his feet a lot, especially when he drives the ball. He does not have like the Tiger, almost like perfect swing, perfect putting stroke, that kind of stuff. But he just executes, man. And especially like if he has a down hole, if he bogeys a hole, or God forbid double bogeys a hole, it's almost even money that the guy's going to come back and birdie the next 3 holes. That's the mark of a real champion and a guy that's a player. He finished the round, I think it was the 3rd round, when guys were sort of jockeying for position on the last 3-4 holes of that tournament, which are tough holes, and he went something ridiculous like birdie, eagle, par birdie or something to really give himself a 3-4 shot lead going into the last round. And then, screwed around a little bit, let Rahm tie him, and then turned it on again, much like Tiger would do. And just turned it on and won the thing by 5-6 shots. So I think the sky's the limit for Scottie. He's actually just playing against himself at this point. If he's got his A game or his B game going, he's winning the tournament. It's just by how much. And when he has a C game or he's been arrested before the tournament, he still has a chance to do something. So
that was great.
I think for the next several years, you got to keep an eye on this guy, and as long as he stays healthy, he had the injury earlier in this year that really probably affected him for the Masters. But if he stays healthy, Oakmont and Port Rush are right up his alley. So I think the sky's the limit, really, for Scottie Scheffler. I'm not going to put him anywhere close to Tiger at this point, but you're seeing elements of a guy who's, still relatively pretty young, that's put it all together, and it's really just him competing against himself at this point.
So is it Charles Schwab Challenge this weekend?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because he's a heavy favorite right now.
Big time.
He's plus 225. The next guy on the board is Daniel Berger at plus 2,000.
Wow.
So
yeah,
it's pretty sick.
Yeah, last week we were on the show. We were picking the winner of the PGA Championship. I took DeChambeau. Who did you take? It was like Spieth.
Was it Koepka?
It was Koepka. Yeah, Pat took Spieth.
I find value. I try to find value.
Yeah. And I believe Noah took. I forget who Noah took, but
winner, not a winner.
No, it wasn't a winner. No. But last week, and I was talking to Sully about this because Sully loves to bet golf. Last week when we were talking on the show, I think Scheffler was like plus 350 at least, maybe plus 400 because Rory was the favorite going into the PGA Championship, and I'm kicking myself now for not putting 50.
If I'm not mistaken, Scheffler was the favorite last 2 tournaments, right?
He's always the favorite.
Yeah,
Scottie Scheffler is, if he's in a tournament, he is the favorite, and that's not going to change anytime soon. Now we're going to talk about another big happening that close to our hearts right here at Pbkc. The Preakness Stakes happened last Saturday. Journalism won in very exciting fashion. If you haven't watched the race, there was 2 horses side by side. Journalism kind of pushed through, if you want to call it that, and ended up running down an early speedster to win that race. Also, Sandman was also in the money too. But we're really hoping to see a matchup between Journalism and Sovereignty going head-to-head in the Belmont Stakes, which is going to be run at Saratoga. How did we feel about that finish in the Preakness, Pat?
Well, the finish was awesome. I mean, we've had 2 really great races in the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness now. Horse racing, being what it is, can't help themselves. And, you had Sovereignty immediately pull himself out of the Preakness, which drives me nuts. I mean, you almost should have a law that if you win the Kentucky Derby, you have to run in the Preakness. But here's what it does do. It sets up, like you said, the rubber match with Sovereignty and Journalism in the Belmont, which would really, aside from having a Triple Crown possibility, these are two of clearly the best horses. So you want to see them almost like in a match race situation and have it decided who's going to be horse of the year and that kind of stuff in the Belmont. Now, with that said, again, horse racing being horse racing, wouldn't shock me at all if one of these two horses comes up with something the day before the Belmont and pulls himself out. But I hope that doesn't happen. I hope Sovereignty gets in there and shows what he can do in the Belmont. I give journalism and the owners a lot of credit. Normally, the horse that doesn't win, or especially if he comes in second, does not run in the Preakness because they want to preserve whatever aura they have with that horse in terms of breeding and everything else, so they don't want to run him again. And I give those owners a lot of credit for running that horse and showing what he can do, just like you said, coming from nowhere to win that Preakness. So, yeah, if horse racing doesn't, shoot themselves in the foot here, maybe we can actually have an exciting Belmont that's not a Triple Crown possibility, but with two of the best horses that we have this year showcase their talents and see which one's going to come out on top, in a couple weeks.
He was the favorite, obviously, to win the race,
Yeah,
right?
he was the favorite.
How often does that happen in these big races that the favorite actually wins?
This was a shorter field. This was only a 9-horse field, so
Okay,
it's
okay.
not shocking. The Kentucky Derby, you're never going to get an overwhelming favorite. You're not going to get like a 6-5 in the Derby because there's usually 20 horses. But in this Preakness, with a 9-horse field, journalism was the favorite. I believe Sandman probably second.
Just want to ask you about that. Sandman was the second favorite. How did he do in the race? Was he?
Second or third.
Because Metallica's been playing up on their website the last couple of weeks, though.
I'm sure.
For this, and then the Kentucky Derby, they had James Hippo go to the horse and stuff. So a little promotion, PR.
Yeah, no, it was an
pretty cool.
interesting race. I got to shout out one of the things I'm always listening to, and I'm sure Pat heard this. Larry Cullmus, who was the announcer for NBC, he's a former announcer at Gulfstream, where I know the announcer very well now. I think Pat knows him too. Pete Aiello, it's like a little brother of mine who was one of my backups here. But one of the things that made the Preakness so exciting was Larry Cullmus's call, just the excitement in his voice. And when I used to train announcers here back in the day, the main thing I said was act like you really enjoy it, and you got that out of that call. Arguably, in my opinion, one of the better calls I've seen of a Triple Crown race was that call for the Preakness. How do we feel about that, Pat? You listen to so many different horse calls. What did you like about it?
Well, I mean, my favorite all time is if you go back and listen on YouTube, you can hear it. Is the Belmont call with Secretariat, because Secretariat in 1973, all of his races he came from behind, and in this one, he was racing against another horse. And I can't think of the horse's name.
I know you're talking about, yeah.
But anyway, so he starts pulling away, and the announcer at that time uses the phrase like a machine. And if you don't get goosebumps listening to that, especially when the last half of the race where Secretariat is like half a field in front of everybody, 30 horses in front, and sets a Belmont record at the time, which still stands. If you don't get goosebumps listening to that, then you better check your pulse and go to the doctor, because there's something wrong with you. But this one's up there. I mean, this one is up there again because, just like you said, Mike, he let the race dictate how he, and it wasn't a phony. It was a super exciting race, and he just let that emotion, take over in his call. And that's what you want to see in any kind of a call. You don't want it to feel like it's manufactured or forced or scripted or whatever. And the race itself provided that for him. And I think he just let his emotions take over and call it the way he saw it, which is what all you ask for. It's an honest call, and it was a good one. But that's up there. It's in the top 5, I think.
Nice. Yeah, I agree. I just think the sheer emotion and watching journalism run between those two horses was amazing. We're looking forward to another awesome Belmont. Hopefully, journalism and I always mess up this name, Sovereignty. Coming up in about 2.5 weeks, and they're running the Belmont at Saratoga this year because Belmont is still getting fixed up, and they're redoing Belmont. So it's going to be running at the Spa, which the Spa starts actually in, I believe, July too, which is one of our big things where people come and bet on the horses. So looking forward to the meet at Saratoga and also the Belmont. And now we're going to move into our betting picks of the week. So Pat, you got any betting insights for us this week?
Well, I mean, I know hockey's not a big thing to bet on, but Carolina now, this is the fourth conference final they've been in since they won the Cup in 2006. And after 2006, so the next three, they have not won one game in a conference final. They're 0-13, I think, now. I'm not going against that. I think it's going to be very tough because I think Carolina is still a good team. But I'm not going against 0-13. I think the Panthers, I don't know what they're going to be favored in that game. But until Carolina breaks that streak, I'm taking Florida to win again and net tomorrow night. So that's my bet of the day.
Yeah, I'm going to go. Obviously, the East Conference Finals kick off tonight. Knicks and Pacers. I'm going to take the Knicks -4.5 and the over at 223.5. I have Knicks in 7 for the record, winning the series.
Yeah, I have two bets. Like Pat mentioned, the Panthers, that's tomorrow night. I got the Panthers winning over 5.5 total goals between both teams.
I like that.
And Matthew Tkachuk, I'm betting on him to score a goal over half a goal, and that's going off at plus $600, $20 to win 140.
Did he score last night? Did he score last night?
I'm not sure if he did or not. We have a person on the show that could probably
he had a
answer
little bit of a
that
drought
question.
for a while during the last series. I know that, but.
But my other bet is actually tonight, the first game of the Eastern Conference Finals in the NBA. I got the Pacers winning. I got Pascal Siakam over 18.5 points.
He's the wild card in the entire series.
I think
if he gets off in the series, Indy wins the series.
Yeah, I think total they're going under 229 points, and that's plus 600. Again, $20 to win 140. Those are our sports bets. And if you didn't already know, we are actually marketing partners with Hard Rock Bet. And if you want more information, you can go to the website at pbkennelclub.com/Hard Rock Bet, and that's offered by the Seminole Tribe of Florida. Got to be 21 plus and physically present in Florida to wager. Terms and conditions apply. If you're concerned about gambling, please call 1-888-ADMIT IT. And now we're going to talk about what's going on in the poker room one last time. We got those May high hands going on. Of course, the big giveaway is on the 31st. We're getting closer and closer to that. That's 10 days away. High hands every 15 minutes. And don't forget about those progressive high hands, which have been very popular on the weekends. For more information, visit the poker room or our website at pbkennelclub.com. And last but not least, Pat, what are we looking forward to this week?
I'm looking forward to more Aaron Rodgers news, just to see what's going on with this guy, like, where he's at, what's going on. Is he thinking about playing football? No, that's not what I'm thinking. I'm actually looking forward to more of my Phillies. I'm shocked that they're playing this well. Now they're playing Colorado, but who's historically bad.
Yeah.
But I just want to see if they can keep this going. They're playing really well, and I'm shocked more than anybody. But I think I know it's only May, but they really seem to be setting the tone. They lost one of their best relievers to a PED
Alvarado,
suspension. Yeah. But let's see if they can keep the winning going.
Let's hope not, Pat, for my sake. No, I think these two series in the NBA, honestly, I think you're going to see it the tale of two different series. I think this Pacers-Knicks series is going to be down to the very end. It's a pretty much 50-50 series. I said Knicks in 7. I think the West Finals, honestly, is going to be a blowout. Like Pat said, Game 1 is a statement. I think OKC made a statement last night in that second half. I have Thunder in 5 anyway. So I just think that over the course of the next couple of days, you'll see the difference of two different series. The West Finals end pretty quickly. The East Finals go to the limit. So
yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to is the Eastern Conference Finals, just because two teams that haven't been there in a while.
Yeah.
Two teams that not a lot of people had picked to be there in the first place.
Although the Pacers were at the East Finals last year too.
Were they?
Luckily,
okay, yeah,
luckily, but yeah, they were there last year.
But just to see the Knicks there is a huge thing. I rooted so hard against the Knicks back in the '90s, back in the Jordan days, but I can't help but root for them a little bit in this case.
How do you think I feel, dude? I'm tortured. I'm a New Yorker. Okay,
yeah.
and the Knicks were my number 2 team growing up. I've been a Heat fan 36 years.
Yeah.
But then the way they treated Patrick Ewing after he left, it left a bad taste in my stomach. So that's why. But I'm tortured. But because this is a very likable Knicks team. I love Jalen Brunson. I'm a huge Jalen Brunson fan. So
yep, I'm rooting for the Knicks in this series. But we got a lot of playoff series with hockey and NBA going on.
Yep.
We can't wait to see you next week on the show, 10 a.m. right here. All of over social media. It's Pbkc Picks. Thank you to Pat for checking in. Thank you to Ernest. And we're going to see you next week at 10 a.m.
Pbkc is your entertainment destination for poker, table games, OTV, Paddock live events, and exceptional eats. The Paddock restaurant is perfect for meetings, corporate functions, parties, fundraising, and more. Call 561-683-2222 extension 199 and book your next event today.
It's May Payday in the poker room with new, bigger high hand promotions. High hands every 15 minutes, 9 a.m. to midnight with a $15,000 cash giveaway on May 31st. New this month are May Progressive High Hand Weekends with a $100,000 bonus giveaway. Win extra cash for qualifying hands. Miss it today, win more tomorrow. Visit the poker room for complete rules.